Here today with two clinical school social workers to discuss some of the issues that we see in the Black community. So how about you ladies come up?
Okay. Hi, I'm Valerie Ladd, school social worker at Anacostia High School. I've been practicing social work for about 11 years now. Prior to becoming to the school system, I worked in child welfare system, strictly with teens, trying to transition or help them transition into adulthood. And I noticed that the barrier was that a lot of them did not have the high school diploma or the skill set to be able to be productive. We know that you need a job to be able to live. Those basic needs need to be met, and they weren't. And so I felt the need to have to come to the school to see what were the barriers of them not receiving the skills and the high school diploma. So that's what landed me here to the school system, and I've been here for 6 years.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nikia Harris, so clinical social worker in the District of Columbia. Prior to coming to Anacostia, I worked in HIV. I worked with children and families impacted or infected with or affected with HIV at Children's Hospital, working with pregnant moms, newly diagnosed with HIV and linking them to resources. Coming to the school system, I'm a product of DCPS. So it was my social worker who kind of led me to the field of social work. So it was always a goal to be in the school system. I was in another school prior to coming here, but I wanted to come back to Ward 8 because this is where I was raised.
So, knowing that Black people have been in slavery and have, after slavery, been through Jim Crow, redlining, and all of these other things, what do you say that you see that could be caused by the impacts of slavery?
I would just say the breakdown of the family unit. Family unit is the first institution of society, and in retrospect, our Black men were taken from the family for capitalistic purposes and left the mom to care for the child and raise the child, and that's still happening today. And so I definitely think that that has been a residual negative effect of slavery from today's time, where we do not have the male presence as well as the female presence to give that holistic view, yes, and balance about young people. And not to say that two-parent household is always just the best, but I do think that they need to have a model of how what a male perspective is and a female perspective is.
Absolutely, it's a strong foundation.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. And Ms. Harai.
So Ms. Lott, yes, the same thing. I would say the disintegration of the Black family. When you look at statistics and you look at data, oftentimes it's a single female-headed household. And sometimes you do have a male presence, but that's not always, and it's not always positive. So looking at the environment in which the children are being raised in, whether the father's there or not, is definitely impacting our kids. And I think it's that unknown piece for them, not having that. And they'll say females look for daddy or have daddy issues. But I think our boys have those same issues when daddy isn't present. It just comes out differently. It comes out in relationships when they start to date. It comes out in how they treat their peers. If how do you manage those man-to-man relationships if you haven't seen that model in your home? So it's like different areas that impact the males as well.
Absolutely. You guys both work here at Anacostia, DCPS, east of the river, predominantly Black school. You guys see a lot.
Yeah.
And being social workers, you know, what are some of the issues that you see and that you try to maneuver?
A lot of trauma. We are a trauma-informed school, a restorative justice school, but there's a lot of trauma. And when you think of trauma, it doesn't necessarily have to be trauma in the household. When you walk the city or when you walk this area, you can see it coming to school. Our kids is not necessarily, so when I think about parents and we say trauma, and there's nothing going on in my household. But if I'm witnessing fights in the community all the time, if the police sirens and the ambulance are constantly going on, if I see people outside sleeping or they're high, that's traumatic. If you think about the fourth grader walking to school by themselves and they're witnessing this and they're taking this in every single day. And the expectation
Absolutely.
is that they come to school and just be ready when they've just seen all of these things first thing in the morning.
Yeah. And I definitely would have to agree with my colleague about just understanding they take springing it's so much that they have to even get through these doors. And so what our role is to try to help not only have them label what they're seeing, because you have to label what is going on with you, right? And then, but we also have to educate our other staff members as teachers when we have them, okay, little Johnny's acting out. But what is going on with little Johnny? So we always ask the question, now what's wrong with you? But what's going on? Because I always talk about the invisible backpack. Like they come with so much that you don't see on the exterior, but internally they're dealing with a lot. So we're facing systemic issues and concerns. Like I have students who seen their best friend get shot in the head and they come to school the next day. How are you even expected to learn any type of algebra, geometry, English, run-on sentence, whatever the case may be, to know when you have that in your mind? So it's up to us that we have to continue to allow them to label what they're seeing, how to cope with it, because granted, we can't control everything that happens on outside of Anacostia, but our role is to help them to manage and cope and educate our staffs on even how you approach our kids, because a lot of our kids have a lot of triggers. We as humans, we have our own triggers, but the reality is that when we lead with empathy, I feel like we can really decrease some of the issues or concerns and the behaviors that we're seeing in this room.
Absolutely. I really like that term. I'm going to write that down, the invisible backpack.
Yeah. That's not been line for a minute. Yeah, that's my favorite thing. I know. But it's really real. And we all have our invisible backpacks. We have our own personal things. But at the same time, I think we are expected to just, we as adults, we kind of know how to compartmentalize. We can do it, but our kids just can't have an on and off button like that. That their mind is not equipped, to even do that. So it's up to us to help them process things and just being a supportive adult. A lot of our students need just support. And like Ms. Harris, like she can't even get a lunch period. I told she got to set some boundaries. But just, because they come to her. They're like 5 and 10 kids in her office at lunch. And she opens them with, open arms. And for me, I love them dearly, but I'm really worrying about self-care. Because if I don't take time for myself, I can't be a better social worker, a better wife, a better, mother, all of that. And so, but she, so our kids see that as a safe haven, and that's what we all provide. But with Miss Harris, she really she's working on it, right? But it's good. Our kids see that. If she's off, then her kids like, where's Miss Harris? And which is good. So I love that, and that's what we all try to just provide a loving, safe, stable environment for them. Because it's a lot that our kids face.
I absolutely think that it's beautiful that you guys are doing this, giving back. This is your duty. I feel like, and this is me, I feel like every black person has a duty as an adult to, whatever you're doing, it should be in some way uplifting the black community, uplifting your community, no matter what you are doing. And I understand that everybody needs money, everybody needs a job, but at the same time, you should be, no matter what, even when you step outside, you should be a role model for black boys and black girls that are outside as well, that don't even know you. And it's great that you guys are working here, and I know that it's probably hard. But that you guys see the bigger picture. You understand what's going on, and you're not just labeling and saying that this is their fault. And you're trying to actually work with them and mitigate what is going on in their lives. I think that that's a beautiful thing, and you guys are, I'm gauging your personalities, and I can just imagine how you engage with the children and how it's genuine and how this, just hearing what you're saying and how you understand. Even if you don't come from this background, you understand what's going on, because and this representation matters absolutely with these children. They need to see the love and support from black people.
Like you say, it doesn't necessarily, I was blessed enough to be raised in Ward 8 and be a product of DC public schools, But you don't have, like you said, you don't have to be from this community to fully understand what's going on with these babies. I think, so we're in the high school, but you imagine what that looks like for those elementary school kids and those middle school kids, and they're expected to perform. And as like you said, as adults, we have to unpack our stuff. Like, I sit in my car before I come in here in the morning, because whatever I have going on with me, these babies don't deserve.
Right.
These babies absolutely do not deserve. And so I have to sit. Sometimes I listen to some Yolanda, sometimes I gotta listen to some Lil Kim. But it just depends on what's going on. So that I can make sure I'm giving them 100% every day. And if something happens today, Monday's a new day. I'm gonna greet you the same way. Hey honey, how are you? Good morning, boo. Like, every day is a new day, and I think that's the piece we have to continuously work on with adults.
Yes.
Letting go and moving past whatever that incident was. Let it go. We addressed it. We move on, and we welcome them back into the space.
And looking at the bigger picture, absolutely.
And I think one thing also is that we talk about expectations. We're expecting our students to be adults, right? Yes, we're trying to prepare them for adulthood, but once again, we look at the psychology of the matter. It's the trauma they face that really impacts their just ability to have logic. And we think about the brain is not developed until it's 25, 26. We're dealing with 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And in addition to that, that trauma that they're faced. So at the same time, we have to understand, like, just have empathy. Like, these are still teenagers trying to figure it out. We all were teenagers once. We didn't dot every I and cross every T. As adults, we still don't do that. So why are we so strict and hard on our little brothers and sisters out there? We just have to model and show them, hey, to think about, did you think that was a good thing? If you thought so, let me show you another way to do it. Because we're trying to save lives. It's a t-shirt that I like. It said, nurses and doctors, oh Lord, now I'm messing it up. Nurses and doctors save lives. There you go. Nurses and doctors save lives, but social workers help them live again. You know, and so I love that. You know, I want to get that t-shirt. I love it a lot. And I think that's what we really try to do here. And even just teachers in general. You know. I got some little one-liners for you. Yeah, but yeah, so, and I know I can speak, like, I work closely with Ms. Harrod, and I mean, like you said, we got our own personal stuff going on, but we make sure that we are here committed to them and give them 100%. I
would say, I think, and we also personally do it when you look at our children, right? So we both have girls, and some of the things I know that I do with my girls is try to get them to understand, you don't have a silver spoon by far. Like, we not living high and mighty, but the question comes up sometimes, why are people so mad in the morning? You know, like, you have to understand, so getting them to that empathetic point where they understand where their peers are coming from, so that they can take a different approach with them. So that they can love on each other. Like,
you know, I think it's interesting about that, that you say that you both have children and you both work in this field. My mother is she's a child psychologist. She works for DCPS, and my mother she didn't grow up in DC. I think that she had a totally different black experience. But she's a lot older, and so she grew up in a different time, in a different place. And, you know, coming here, you know, everybody aspired to come to Howard. And so she came here for graduate school. No, I don't know. Don't get me mixed up. But she went to Howard. And she wound up staying here. And when she first started working in DCPS, it was the 80s. And so,
that was the crack era.
She specifically works with children now. Like, she works at early stages. She's about to retire, but she does not. When she first started working here, she was working in the high schools and the middle schools in the 80s during the crack epidemic. And you know, just recently, I just started asking her questions about that. But me growing up, she would so she, you know, she tests children and she does do some therapy, but it would be, she was very dedicated to her job. And I remember being a child, and I went to DC public schools, but I went to, like, the Capitol Hill cluster schools. But what she did was, I was the youngest, and she would take me everywhere. And there would be children that she would keep in touch with. And I literally remember this. We would go to houses east of the river, and she would come to people's houses.
Yeah.
And that is not a part of her. That's not in her job description.
Right.
And I would ask her because I didn't understand. Mom, look, we are over here, and this was the 90s. Okay,
Right.
I was like,
It was
rough.
rough.
Definitely rough.
Yeah.
And you know, now that I'm older, I'm like, I'm sure that impacted them in some way. And my mother says that even now she sees adults sometimes. Miss Kinsler, you know what I mean? Like, those kids needed that.
Yeah.
They were going, like my mother, she would bring food, she would bring toys around the holidays, and I'd be like, Mom, but now I understand.
Yeah.
And those kids need that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I'm glad that she did that. But she does tell me about some stories that she went through. She's like, I would never work in high school again. Because my mother not built like that.
Right.
So, and I know she was going crazy.
I mean, back in the 80s and 90s,
I probably would. I think I could have done it. Because
my mother told me one time, it was this boy, he was in high school, he was like in 9th grade. And I guess he was dealing drugs, and she was about to leave the school, and the boy drives up in his car, in a car that got bullet holes all on the side of it. And he's like, man, Miss Kinsler, I done did something, woo, woo, woo. I don't want to do this no more.
Yeah.
Like, fed up.
Yeah.
I could just imagine the emotional baggage that you got going on with that.
Right.
And then my mother's like his parents. His mother depends on him to take care of things.
Yeah.
And he's just so his invisible backpack. He can't handle it.
Yeah.
And my mother literally told him, she was like, play crazy. And he wound up playing crazy to go get put in a mental institution. Because they was trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And it was
that
like
was his protection.
Wow.
And that was the only thing that he could do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, I was like, dang, Ma, how old you? He's probably 45 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was just like, that's crazy.
That you have to
that these are the
play
things.
psychotic to save your life.
Yeah.
But this is what's going on in the black community. You know what I mean? And it's like,
it continues. It's getting worse.
because now you have that generation raising children and that generation raising children, and it's getting so further away from where we were starting to, I guess.
We look at it now, like I'm an 80s baby, so I was born in the 80s. So we're looking now, we are servicing the children who were front line of dealing with their mothers. So their mothers were on drugs or dads on drugs. And so like for me, like I could be some of these kids' parents, right? And so we are working with a generation like, you know, parallel to, okay, so if I have someone a mother who's in her 30s, I'm in my 30s, but she's raising this little boy that I'm servicing. So that's the generation, unfortunately, effects of the crack epidemic that we're facing.
Absolutely.
You know?
DC was crazy back then.
Yeah.
I was, I'm a 90s baby, but I was around. I was like, so it was definitely rough.
So the late 80s and the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I was on the other side, on the Ridge Road, Minnesota Avenue side. We were talking about this recently. How you could be outside with someone one day, chopping it up, having a good time, wake up the next morning and they are gone. And it's like, what do you, and it was happening almost every day.
Wow.
You couldn't go to the movies on Minnesota Avenue where like that Subway is.
Okay.
There used to be a movie theater right there. I can't think of the name of it. The Senator, I think. It was a movie theater right there. They would go in and shoot up the movie theater. So you couldn't even go to the movies. And it was us. It wasn't mass shooters. It was us going in because we had these neighborhood, like I said, crack epidemic. So we selling it and we're using it, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not gonna take my block. You're not gonna take my money. You're not gonna take my customers. I live here. The same thing we're seeing now. I live on this street. You live on that street, so we can't coexist. And it was so, like, I remember being outside playing and having to duck.
Yeah.
Because they're shooting. They ain't stopping from outside.
But
I remember jumping out all the time.
Yeah.
A friend of mine's house was raided one time. And it was just like, it was real. Like, it was.
I don't know.
And I always say divine intervention kept me from all that foolishness and stuff because it was in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like, you know, everyone has experience and why we're here. So you experiencing that, you get it. And that's why you can relate to the students that we work with now. Like I grew up in Baltimore, down the streets, same situation. Okay,
Everywhere.
You know,
Everywhere
in the city.
that
So
black people are.
yeah,
this is what
walking
happened.
over crack pipes, did all of that. You know.
But to bring it back, like to being a social worker, how do we give our babies those tools and resources so they're not repeating the same thing over and over, so that they are available to their kids? Because more and more parents are burying their children. They say, as my mother say, you should never have to bury your child. Your child's supposed to bury you. So how do we in this field continue to push through, even when it's hard, to give these babies the skills they need, to give them the resources they need when they're here?
Absolutely, just take it one day at a time. And you know, I think that everybody has different experiences. It's no wrong way.
Right.
As long as you are able to acknowledge that it's not okay. I think that sometimes people, I think it's a problem when people are like, there's nothing wrong. We've came so far. You know, acknowledge that, because I feel like I didn't necessarily have the traditional experience. But I did grow up in the inner city. I did grow up in D.C. in the 90s. And so I did see that. And at the end of the day, even if you did grow up with a lot of white people, you're still black. So...
Yeah, you think about, I have, you do. I mean, it's nothing wrong. Everyone wants to, what they consider, do better than the next generation, or have, like, I want my kids to surpass what myself and my husband are doing. But the reality is that once you get there, you always got to turn back around and help somebody else out. That's the reality. You got to give back. Like,
that is the point of moving forward and giving back.
Absolutely. So we don't, and so I think further in terms of, we talk about slavery, just the division that we have even amongst as a people, like, you know,
colorism.
Right, colorism, absolutely, absolutely. You look at all of that, that's also impacted us in terms of our society and with black people. We have a lot going on.
We got a lot of
it is. And that's something that that's probably the most recent thing that I have come to the realization. And so now I'm looking at things differently. My thing is, the basis is, there is no right and wrong way. There is no right and wrong way. So I'm not gonna get upset at your experience or what you're doing. You know what I mean? I'm gonna support you. Period. I think that is what is important. That division, to try to bridge that gap, and try to just. It's literally, I hate it. I really do. You know, you have celebrities that do things, and then people are like, well, why you ain't do this? And why you ain't do that? And why you not? Listen, good brother, that's good. You know, like, that's good. That, exactly.
It's like so systemic and so institutionalized that it's just like, what do we do to, like,
It is. And I realize this more and more. And so, I don't know, I guess I could just learn. Thank you, ladies, for everything that you do. I don't know where I'm going to go with it. But I did. I wanted to start a nonprofit organization, or work with a nonprofit. I kind of want to bridge the gap. I want children, inner city children, to have better experiences. When I traveled outside of the United States, it was something that nobody can ever take that away from me. And it is life-changing. And I think that impacts you in your own way.
It shapes and molds you.
No matter where you are in life.
It's experience exposure over items. And so... And it's key. And so that was something I had to change for myself, right? And that goes back to, I don't know if you probably read the book, Breaking the Psychological Chains of Slavery. And you haven't read?
I don't think I read it.
It's not a long book. It's not a long book. Psychological Changes. Breaking the Psychological Chains of Slavery. It's not a very thick book, but it just talks about how it goes into how we spend money, how we used to get the hand-me-downs from massa, and so that kind of built into still, and how when we get money, we spend it on these Gucci bags and these red bottoms and these luxury cars. And so, like, you know, I would call myself a plain Jane, but I do like a nice bag every now and then. But I had to, with my girls, think experience and exposure over items, because that's something that we'll have. And so now, because I didn't leave DC on a plane until I was like 16. And so I didn't leave the country until I was in my 30s. Whereas my children have passports now. And my daughter will quickly tell you the baby is time for a stamp. Because
I know that's right. I know that's
she
right.
enjoys the experience.
Absolutely.
And so I think if we get there, and it increases the language barrier and the language gap and the vocabulary, because the exposure piece.
And
our
culture
kids are already behind as far as language and stuff and word gaps. But by traveling and exposing them to different things, exposing them to stuff in the city, exposing them to stuff in Baltimore.
Absolutely. We right here in the nation's capital.
So many
increases
great
that
minds.
language and lifestyle. It just makes you look at stuff differently.
Culture and experience.
Experiences.
That's something that my mother instilled in me.
No,
and
I get it.
Done that with your girl.
I definitely, so look, while I love to give a good party, I like to coordinate, but my husband started thinking, it's great to have parties for their birthday, but what about taking a trip for them? And that's what we do.
That is what I would do. I said, I want a birthday party.
It's like, it's too much. Just though, like you said, give them that experiences. And I always say, I just said it yesterday, because I'm, a part of the PTO at my daughter's school, and the teachers were laughing at me. They were like, oh, Miss Lott, you're always here. And I was like, I do have a full-time career, I do. But the reality is, I always said that my kid doesn't remember what I spent on them. They remember the time I spent. So she's going to remember, oh, mommy was turned up to the PTO dance back to school. She volunteered. She gave back her time. Because, once again, she can't remember how many shoes I bought her or things of that nature. But she does remember the time I spent. And so that's the reality that we have to have. But so often, people overcompensate, give Jordans and Gucci belts. I'm not, but no, it's nothing good. Like you said, I love a good bag, I love a good shoe, but don't make that your major focus, because there's so much more out there. We look at it our Caucasians, you can't even tell. I think, unfortunately, we had this, like you said, because we had hand-me-downs, but now that we have money, we want to look like we have money. But is that really wealth? Wealth is being able to, when a rainy day happens, that you're able to just go ahead and take care of it. Or either your children, your children's children are set. Right, you're not having a, sorry, no shade, but a GoFundMe when you pass away. That's life insurance, generational wealth. You having a Gucci shirt on is going to depreciate. But you giving them some land or giving them investment in their college tuition is what really, really matters. But unfortunately, we have it on the opposite, where they just think, oh, I want to look like.
But it's also about being knowledgeable too, because that's something that I kind of came up with, just looking at stuff and experiencing stuff with my girls. But it's not something that was discussed. It's not something that we talked about in the house. It's not something that we talked about in school. It's not. We didn't talk about it on the block. Like, how do you passport? What? Passport. Like with my kids. So it's like, hopefully they'll take what we're doing. And they'll see. And it's actually a teacher up the street who takes a group of elementary kids to Africa every year.
That's amazing. That is. I went to Kenya, and I was in Nairobi, and I visited an orphanage for children who have HIV and AIDS. And oh my goodness, it was just an amazing experience. It's one girl that she like, once they graduate from high school, they just kind of like kicked them out. But she's trying to get through college, and this one girl, I really, really liked her. And so me and her still keep in contact. We've been keeping in contact for a couple years now. I send her a little bit of money every now and then, because honestly, I might send her like $30, and that'll pay her rent and buy her food.
Oh, please.
$30, girl. I'll spend $30 on food right now.
Right, on one day or lunch. Those delivery fees.
No, for real. And so, she really, really, really helps me. Because, first of all, this girl is an orphan. Don't know her parents. She was born with HIV. And grew up in an orphanage, and you live in Africa. You know what I mean? And so, but it was like, I went and I talked to a group of girls, and it was crazy, because I was like, I feel like I don't know Oprah, I don't, but the woman that was there was like, you want to know something? The only people that come here are white people. I'm not going to ask no white woman from Europe to come talk to some black girls with HIV from Africa. I said, you know what?
Wow.
That's all you got to say.
Yeah.
And you know, they were just so optimistic about everything, and I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Just like the position that you're still happy.
Yeah.
Like you still have this positive outlook on life. And the one girl was like, I was like telling them and trying to give them words of advice, and the girl was like, she can't even leave her country. She tried to get a visa to go to school in another country, but because she has HIV, they won't even let her. That broke my heart, and I was speechless. Like,
and she just was born with it. It was just.
It becomes about the money and the care. And
I mean, you already from a third world country where it's hard for you to get visas to go anywhere, and that's something that we take for granted too.
Yeah.
Well, American passport is gold. You can go. You can literally go anywhere in the world right now with no visa.
Yeah.
As soon as you get there, get a visa.
Yeah.
Some people have to pay, like, get a visa 3 years in advance. Gotta have $10,000 in the bank just to come here and visit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And so, and it's third world countries are countries of people of color. So, but that's a whole nother.
That's a topic.
Another topic, but that was, I loved your perspectives, ladies. Thank you. I've never talked to another social worker, I don't think, outside of like someone that my mother knows. It was interesting to get your perspective. Working here at Anacostia, predominantly black school, inner city, marginalized students. And yes, thank you for all that you do. And just take it one day at a time.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We'll continue to walk and say, why Anna?
Why Anna?
Right, so when you upload
Why Anna?
Why Anna?
I'm gonna put that on.